how the weapons are so significantly different, how the pulling of them. I've never handled those sort of weapons, so I couldn't have told you till I learned it in the courtroom, the mechanisms that are involved in the holster of a police officer. So they're mechanical devices that are distinctly different. That's why Mr. Raines is trying to argue where Messerly's thumb was, because the mechanics of getting them out of these holsters are different, and getting them to the point of using the trigger is different. That's how we know. Raines, I think, tripped himself up when he said that Messerly, as other officers, fires that service revolver. I think he said 1,000 times.
Right. He done fired it over 1,000 times.
Yeah, he's fired that gun 1,000 times. Now, if you've been using something 1,000 times, then you know exactly where it is. You know what's in your hand. You know how to fire with your eyes closed. You know how to get it out with your eyes closed. So if he's a soldier, and he is, Brother Bobby was in the Army, then you all have to put your guns together blindfolded. And they do that to you?
In the dark, too. Yeah.
In the dark.
So you had to learn how to handle that weapon in inclement conditions,
Eyes
under
closed.
stressful conditions.
Yeah.
They might even put you in tear gas in a little room and make you figure out how to get your weapon together while you're under this duress. Is that how they handle them?
Yeah.
Now, they may not put a police officer in that,
Right.
but surely Raines did acknowledge that the man was well trained on a gun. Now, whether or not he was trained well on a taser is fine. Obviously, they haven't been to the stand yet.
But-
Since he's
well,
introduced in the opening argument the holsters, the types of weapons.
Right. But
Yes.
he actually had, his very first witness was Vicki Long, who's a videographer.
Right, I said that before you.
Oh, you did?
But I
Okay.
mean like a weapons expert and a psychology expert.
No, he hasn't brought them in.
Not yet.
Whether he
It's
has
still-
or not is a different
He's
question.
not done with his case
Yeah,
right
he's
now.
Just
He's-
starting out.
He's only examined the videographers
Right.
that he's used to this point, and one other witness who actually came out of BART. I hadn't seen him before.
We hadn't seen him.
Who was a passenger on the, I forget his name, but he was a passenger
Right.
on the train that night. Big young man. He just had a good view of Peroni attacking Oscar and his friends. Like Mr. Liu, he seemed to have the temperament that suggested that if black people are attacked by the police, what did they do?
Right.
That seemed to be his view.
Right.
But even though that was apparently his view, he was clear that they hadn't done it,
Right.
that Peroni, and he kind of expressed that that was his view.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't a guesswork. His view was you should comply with the police,
Right.
do those kind of things, and he couldn't believe what he was saying. Now, evidently, whatever happened in the investigation with Bart, he kept quoting what happened in the Bart investigation process when they asked him about his recollection of the events. And he quoted about 4 times what happened when the Bart investigators came to him.
Just one last thing. The point about Peroni and the expression on his face after he murdered Oscar,
Messerly.
Messerly, on Messerly's face, is that you can have the intent to kill someone, you can do it, and afterwards realize you made a big mistake because you did it in front of a bunch of people.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So that look may be, I'm so sorry, oh my God, I just did this in front of everybody. But that doesn't change the intent that he meant to kill him.
If I can add this really quick and I
Yes,
get
sir.
out of the way. And it happened to be, it came to my realization for the first time because I had never seen it before, but what is real major is that after he killed Oscar and went so called through his little motions, he then decided to roll Oscar over and knee him in the back. Bam! Right where the bullet hole is at, and then proceed to handcuff him. Any man that was traumatized by an act that they had did would not have been able to follow through with that type of action.
So you wouldn't all of a sudden be a stickler for BART policy
Exactly.
of handcuffing somebody that has been shot because they may be a threat.
Right.
If you shot them on an accident, they were never a threat. So one would imagine that first aid would have been his response, not handcuffing. Yes, ma'am.
My one thing I just want to say, I've been on a jury, and from start to finish, no matter what happens during the trial, when you sit in that jury room, you confrontation from start to finish. So they will not forget, even if they forget, that beginning when that young man, 17, was brought up there and burst out in tears. All that information comes from start to finish. You will sit there, you will argue, you might agree or disagree, but you will have all the facts right there in front of you.
Yes, ma'am. Sister Judy.
Well, the picture of Measurely holding the taser, was that new to the family?
Yeah, it was all new to us too.
Good.
Oscar's very last picture he took was of Measurely with a taser in his hand, and that's what this whole case is about.
And I will say that God leaves the door open.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
That's
I
what
don't
you
know
call
how
a
this is going
smoking
to turn
gun
out,
evidence.
but that shocked me completely.
Yeah.
The idea that Mesley did not know where his gun was.
Right.
And we had a press conference, and I want to thank Bobby. We've been organizing our engagements with the press so that we don't oversaturate and give them more than they really want. And we should know that you should not expect from the general press accurate reporting. And I was speaking with the sister a little while ago, Sister Ann, and others, about the fact that in Los Angeles, you've got the largest, one of the media markets in the world, certainly in the country, and that there are so many homicides there that most of them do not even reach the news. Brother Bobby and I went on KJLH Radio, which is owned by Stevie Wonder, 4:30 on Thursday morning before the trial. And there were listeners. Some came to the courtroom as a result of listening to that radio show. But the host of the show, Dominique Dupree is her name, seemed to feel that everybody knew about the case and that all we had to do was to make an announcement. The reality, everybody does not know about the case. So as we were talking with one of the journalists after Jamil testified, he felt, being from Los Angeles, that that wasn't good testimony, and he's seen hundreds of cases, and that was his opinion. And okay, you're entitled to your opinion. However, what you don't know is the full range of what had happened. You would have a more clear picture as a journalist if you had done some journalism and found out who all these characters are before you got in there to report. Unfortunately, the journalists that we often see work for the corporate media, and when it comes time to present the report, doesn't meet with the compassion that we saw in the courtroom. As Bobby was being interviewed yesterday, I don't forget what channel the young lady is from, but she was in tears.
KTV, NBC News.
NBC. She was in tears. So you had to interview him off camera because her eyes were, she was crying from the compassion that she felt for what happened in there. But you don't see that compassion in the general news reports. What you get in the general news reports is the sterilized version and sometimes the altered version of what happened in there. So you leave with the idea that all wrong is happening. However, be clear, we're the underdog. So it's not that all wrong is happening, but you got to knock out a champ. And no police officer in the history of the country has never been convicted for murder in the first or second degree while on duty for this kind of action. Never. Did I say never? Never in the country have we won one of these cases. So our duty now becomes to make sure that it's on every mountaintop. Every ear should hear what happened in Oakland on January the 1st, 2009. Every eye should see what happened in Oakland on January the 1st, 2009. All should be aware of what's happening day to day in that courtroom, because when the jury renders a decision, the police are already called. OPD wants to know what we're going to do. Are we going to give a Rodney King speech? They're already asking. They won't ask me. But they're already asking. The feelers have already gone out, and they're seeking to do a preemptive Rodney King speech before the verdict comes.
And they won't be able to do it. They won't be able to do it.
Yes, sir.
This last photo that Oscar took, was he lying down or was he in an upright position?
He was sitting upright.
So we know that he didn't take a picture of Mesley with the taser in his hand while he was lying face down on the ground and being shot in the back.
The reason that they claim to have had difficulty handcuffing him, they claim, because